Strategy and Infrastructure Committee meeting. Just firstly, housekeeping. In the unlikely event of a siren or bell sounding continuously, please leave the venue immediately and exit point that are at the back of the room, and you go out over the road. If it's an earthquake, please don't leave. Hop under your chair if you can fit. There'll be plenty of room under mine. If you wish to go to the toilets, they're out the back in the foyer. So there's no apologies. We're all here. Any conflicts of interest?
I'd just like to state it's not exactly conflict of interest, but I am part of the Napier Disability Advisory Group. Just a note for the record.
Just a note on the file. Okay, thank you. Right, we have a public forum and we have a representative of the disability community, and I'd ask them to come up and speak. Just to remind you, you have 5 minutes. At 4.5 minutes, you'll get a bell, and at 5 minutes, you'll get another bell. Okay. Thank you.
Kia ora. My name is Lynn Gibson, and I'm here to help support the draft for the consultation that we've had within the health and disability sector in Napier. The project has been expertly facilitated by Natasha Carswell as the Manager of Community Strategies, and also AJ McDonald, who some of you will know is partially sighted and who assisted with the project. They've done an outstanding job, and the consultation with the community has been outstanding in a very inclusive process, which has resulted in this draft document. We've had reference and focus groups where have been enabled, and in conjunction with key departments from the Napier City Council, such as planning, parking and parks and recreation, we have compiled this strategy. Particular highlights for us have been being involved with the playground and the toilet block at Anderson Park, which is now accessible to all ages and abilities, and also the Napier City Council website that we have assisted with information for locals and visitors to Napier. We hope you find this strategy to be an important addition to the wonderful city we have in Napier.
Good afternoon, everybody. I'm Jackie Lee, and I'm from the Napier Hearing Association. I'm deaf, so I've been part of the NAPS group, Napier Accessibility Plus. I'm representing our small group who we all have our various different disabilities, whether it be sight, hearing, physical or mental. We'd just like to thank you all for the chance that you've been giving us. Thank you so much, Natasha and AJ, for helping us put our voices forward and so that we can be heard. It has been really exciting. It has been very thought-provoking, and I've got an awful lot that I would like to add to this whole forum, but maybe another day. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Is there any questions? Well, thank you very much. Obviously did a very good job. We now have Paul Redmond and Shelley Tuiki from the Sailing Club. Just while they're coming up, I'll remind also that this meeting is being recorded visually and audibly. And I'd really, if anyone else is doing anything, can they let us know? Because carry on. You heard the rules on how long you can speak? 5 minutes?
Yes, we have, Mr. Price. We've got a presentation also. Is that included in that 5 minutes?
Yes.
And we'll talk quickly. Right, well, just a brief introduction. Firstly, this is Shelley Tuiki, our manager down at the Napier Sailing Club, and myself, Paul Redmond, generally known as Red, I must admit, the Commodore of the Napier Sailing Club. Thanks for hearing us today. Pricey, thanks for having us here, and to your committee members. This meeting has its roots from April last year when we had a meeting with Bill, Wayne and several council staff. Wayne indicated at that time that there could be some funds from the Hawke's Bay Harbour Board Land Endowment Fund for our breastwork project. I understand that one of your engineers left, so things went a little quiet for a while. The Ahuriri Estuary Coastal Edge Master Plan then appeared, and it seemed opportune time for us to work together on that project. We have a brief presentation at this time to clarify what we require. Shell, could you go through that? We'll make this pretty quick. Yep. That's our vision, our mission statement there. You can see from our mission statement that we are open to all members of aquatic groups and members of the public, and we do stipulate that the Napier Sailing Club is a non-profit sporting organisation. What we are looking for here today is some assistance to build a breastwork upgrade. It's required to ensure the safety of the public and our members, to enhance our marina performance, and possibly required to make the next step in a marina development. Laddies have provided an estimate of between 450 and 500,000 for this work. The main thing that we stress here is a safety issue for our club. Move on. What we stipulate here is that we're a non-profit organisation. We struggle with upkeep and maintenance. We've got a large area, marina, hard stands, ramps, boats, rucks, car parks, power bills, buildings and clubhouse boat sheds to fund. We do share our facilities with many other water-based sports, Sailability Hawke's Bay Paddleboard, Alliance Physiotherapy on their stand-up paddleboards, Hawke's Bay Canoe Polo Club, the Optimist Trust, the Wakarama people, the Hawke's Bay Coast Guard and Safe Boating, and the Sea Scouts and the Ocean Swim people. We see ourselves as a vibrant part of the Napier community. We have a vision to share a wonderful future with facilities and all the water-based groups. Napier Sailing Club continues to welcome and look after visiting vehicles to this area, and this is increasing all the time. I guess the biggest thing on this one is we do require a little bit of financial assistance, some assistance with resource consents as they arise, and the sharing of resources, perhaps for dredging work, etc. The sharing of ideas and discussion about possible outsourcing of management of marina berths and moorings, perhaps all from one office. We have onshore facilities, showers, toilets, restaurants, bar, parking, security, etc. that make us an ideal marina base. Just briefly here, myself and Shelley have met with a delegation from the Napier City Council consisting of Bill, Wayne, Brian Faulkner, David, Robin, Mully, Paulina and Fleur. We have been advised to apply for funding from the Hawke's Bay Harbour Board, Hawke's Bay Land Endowment Fund, towards sharing the cost of the breastwork upgrade. We have an engineer's report and some photographs to show you, and we'd welcome the opportunity to continue discussion along these lines. So briefly into our engineer's report. I trust that the members here have read Graham's rather lengthy and detailed report, so if we can, we'll go straight to some photos just to clarify what we're looking at here, and I'll go through these fairly quickly. Yes. Okay, this is a couple of aerial photos. A large one on the bottom left there showing the general area that the construction will be needed. To the left of that picture is the Pandora dual carriageway heading north. Across the bottom and up to the right hand is the West Quay precinct, and the oval area is what we're looking at. The next photo is of the same area, and the strong white line that you see there is an 80-metre long line, which is where we'd like our breastwork to go. And in fact, you can see we have a couple of quite large visiting yachts tied alongside there at that time. Next one. Okay. Just a quick look at what is there at the moment. That actually doesn't look too bad in the top photo. That's the existing boardwalks. So some of those timbers are 40 years old, 12x2 H5 planks that we are constantly replacing and keeping in a safe condition. The bottom photo is more of the vertical planks along the front of the breastwork. That's probably the better end. That's the end we try and keep tidy. It's where our visiting overseas yachts come. And this next photo is more generally how it looks with the planks unable to be replaced. The piles are losing their diameter, and the rubble that was put there voluntary many years ago was starting to crumble. The next photo just shows our ramp down onto our floating pontoon. It's arguably wheelchair friendly, apart from the little bump at the end. Just some more photos of the rubble stacked underneath. That washes away periodically in big seas. And the bottom photo is showing a lot of the place where a lot of the planks have had to be actually replaced. They've just completely gone, so we're constantly trying to keep that in a safe condition. And the next couple are more or less the same again, just showing the deteriorating state of the breastwork, both close up. Is that 4.5 minutes?
Yep. We want to just show that.
Yeah, just the last one we're going to show you briefly then is the type of construction that we want. The bottom photo there was the sort of walling that we had. We had some assistance from the council sometime to put the vertical 8-section piles with tilt slab panels in and a poured concrete on top. I'd like to briefly get into my presentation if we can, but I'm going to run out of time. Trust that you have read Graham Robinson's engineer's report. Those of you that know Graham will attest to his thoroughness. He's the stalwart of the club and very familiar with the original work and what we now require. We see the new modern breastwork as a big part of the overall coastal edge plan and a safe and visually appealing structure for ourselves and the public to enjoy as a walkway, cycleway or scooter path. Our club caters for and is welcome to all forms of water sport and the general public. It is also the gateway to our city for visiting coastal and overseas vessels. The breastwork and associated floating pontoon is where visiting vessels berth. With the forthcoming America's Cup, I have it on good authority that we will get many overseas yachts coming down our coast to visit.
Paul, you're actually gone over your time?
Have I, mate?
Yeah.
Okay. There's a written copy here if anybody would like to read that.
Yeah.
Okay,
I think
Graham.
your presentation has been pretty good up to the stage.
Well, hopefully people got what they wanted from that. Yes.
And apparently the sailing club want that bell to stop you talking when it's there as well.
Is that right? Okay.
Yeah.
Have you heard
So,
that?
is there any questions, please? Councillor Bogue.
Mr Redmond, has your proposed development taken into consideration rising sea levels?
We have, yes. We are a little vulnerable, we understand. We're going to lift the sill height probably about 250 to account for that. We very seldom get water coming over it now, and we think about 250 will make that quite safe. We do get water coming up our stormwater systems because they're obviously the lowest part of our grounds, but it drains away quite quickly. But yes, we have considered that.
Thank you. Councillor Brosnan.
Just a quick question. One of the additions to the motion that we have is that we firm up the public access to what is now, I think, exclusively club-owned. Just any comment on that? Quite happy with maintaining that public?
Yes, I did cover that in my written part here in my conclusion. We are aware that that would change somewhat for public access, and we're more than happy for that to happen. In fact, that happens now anyway, and we embrace it and we welcome it. So we're more than happy for that slight change, and we understand that council will also want to oversee our plans and oversee the repayment schedule also, and I do have that in my, and that would have come out about 6 minutes. So,
Thank you.
Councillor Tapani.
Straightforward question. Thank you for your presentation, Reid. My question is around, I see you've identified on the maps one area where you'd like to see some improvements happening. Are there planned improvements around the other areas associated to that plank in the near future, or are we just looking at this in isolation at this stage?
At this stage, just that 80-metre wall in isolation. A lot of our other part is relatively new anyway, from our new marina complex. To the west is quite new. Some slight improvements to the south would probably be done, and also there is plans for an ongoing marina to be added to the area also, but that would be at our own cost. We would possibly ask council for a little bit of assistance in the form of permits and consents and perhaps dredging, but financially we are able to do the marina ourselves.
The breastwork that we're talking about, though, would be bearing in mind that a new marina would probably come off that, so that would be done at the same time.
Car point. Thank you.
Cool. Thank you very much, and well conveyed to us. Very good.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you all for your time.
So we now, is there any announcements by the Mayor? No. None by me. Any by management? No announcements. Can I have a confirmation of minutes for 13 November 2018? Moved by Councillor Taylor, seconded by Councillor Bogue. All those in favour? Against? Carried. Right, we move into the agenda items. For item 1, the Napier Disability Strategy, I'd like to welcome the sign language translator that's here when disability for this paper. I'd also like to ask Natasha Carswell to give an introduction to the paper. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Price. So I just wanted to really acknowledge the work of the two groups that we have been working with to develop the strategy, which has been ongoing over a year and a half, and that is the Napier Ability Plus group. So there's members of the group today. Jackie Lee, who spoke with you before, is from that group, and they're a voluntary group, so they've been coming to meetings every couple of months in their own time and have been really valuable in terms of giving the voice of the disability community to the strategy. And we learnt a lot from them. I've actually worked in the disability sector for 10 years in my past life, and I learnt a lot from them as well. The other group, Napier Disability Advisory Group, who Councillor Bogue is part of as representing council, provides a lot of advice to the council officers over different matters from time to time. And they were actually instrumental in getting this strategy off the ground. You'll remember that they've submitted to the annual plans and long-term plans in the past. And so we worked with a committee of that group who were instrumental in developing the strategy as well. So I definitely wanted to acknowledge those two groups who will continue to work with us as the strategy goes through consultation, finalisation and implementation. So we're really looking forward to continuing our work with them. I just wanted to talk about why do we need a strategy. Napier has a higher proportion of people with disabilities than the rest of New Zealand, over a quarter, and our population, our disability community is growing because of our ageing population. And so we really need to look at how our services and facilities in particular are accessible and inclusive going forward. The other thing that we learnt while developing the strategy is that the disability community has a low awareness of council activities and facilities and what's available to them, but at the same time extremely eager to find out more and be more involved, and that was demonstrated by the NAPS group in their attendance and willingness to participate in the development of the strategy. So the strategy really focuses on that access and inclusion, and it's about how we provide our services and facilities and activities. In the development, there has been wider consultation with the disability community, and the NAPS group actually helped facilitate that consultation, taking a lead role in the workshops and focus groups. We've also, as Lynn mentioned, have been working with different staff and focus groups as well around how we can implement the strategy in a practical and meaningful way. So today really is about asking the council to release this draft strategy for wider community feedback, and as you might be aware, a disability strategy and its principles actually can benefit the whole community, particularly our senior population. So that's really all I wanted to say today. Thank you.
Thank you, Natasha. Does anyone have any questions?
No questions. I have a comment on that.
Well, we'll get there. Thank you.
No questions?
So there's any questions? No? Yes, Councillor.
Natasha, thank you to you and everyone involved in this. It's great. Has some thought been given to, and I realise this is going out for consultation, but to further development of the work area? We've talked about the fact that this disability strategy will be great for older people, but some research that HOHEPA was involved in last year talked about the barriers to young people, particularly with intellectual disabilities, and being able to transition from school into work. And there's some wonderful examples around the country of creative entrepreneurial approaches to setting up businesses specifically for young people like that. So there's an opportunity, I hope, within that work area to look further at that sort of thing.
Yeah. So in response to that, just so you know that this strategy is limited at this stage to council services and activities, so the way that we provide our services. It's the first start. So what we do see happening is that once we've got our strategy in place and working, that we can start looking beyond our own services and working with others in the community around a full community disability strategy, which would incorporate that. But certainly, when we're delivering services to youth, we need to be acknowledging how we do that so that they are accessible. And you'll note that we are producing the strategy in an easy read version, which is basically a pictorial version of the strategy, so it's easy to understand for people with intellectual disabilities.
Great,
Yeah.
thank you.
Okay, can I have a mover for this, please? Councillor Bogue, seconded Councillor White.
Just to
Any
speak
comments?
briefly to it, again, I'd like to thank the staff for all the solid groundwork done to pull this strategy together, Natasha and AJ in particular, and the disability community for your very enthusiastic and active participation and input. I see this as a blueprint for the future, a line in the sand, an aspirational document that will show the people that we care about everybody in our city and that we truly want a Napier for all. So I'm looking forward to getting feedback from the rest of the community.
Thank you. Councillor White.
Through the chair, I'd just like to congratulate all those involved in this project. It morphed 18 months ago, Natasha and AJ, and I remember attending the first disability group advisory group meeting, and since then I can see that an enormous amount of work has gone in. And when you look at the Napier Disability Advisory Group and the people that have come on board, and this includes New Zealand Blind Association, Disability Resource Centre, Napier Hearing, Deaf Aotearoa, Dementia Hawke's Bay, and the list goes on. So it just didn't identify one group, it identified many groups across the city, and then the NAP group, which was the Napier Ability Plus, and to have volunteers come from that group and give input about disabilities, and from that probably 6 principles came out of that, which was about access, getting around, getting involved, being included, having fun, being safe, and having work. And I believe that everyone in our community is entitled to that. And so I look forward to it going out to consultation. I commend everyone that's been on board with it. This is a very robust document, and I can only see that it's going to grow from here. So thank you to all involved.
Any other comments before I put the motion? Right, I put the motion, the officer's recommendation. All those in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
Against? Carried. Item 2 is the Napier Sailing Club funding request.
I'll move that.
Moved by Mayor, seconded by Councillor Brosnan. Any questions or comments?
If I could,
Yeah.
look, this just simply makes sense. It's good for our city. We do have the funds available to us, and we actually have a responsibility to spend those monies in the area of Dena Harbour. So this makes sense in every respect.
Councillor Brosnan?
Yeah, I was just going to make the comment that this fund is ring-fenced for exactly this type of work, and I'm really happy to see in there that the deed of lease is going to firm up in perpetuity that public access, which I think is appropriate for public funds going into it. So, thank you.
Very good. Councillor Flynn?
I also, through the chair, support this recommendation. The Napier Sailing Club does an awesome job within our community, and again, it's an area that young people can develop and people can enjoy it, and their work is obviously essential. We don't want a health and safety issue occurring, and the fact that they're willing to come on board and have a partnership with the council and discussed it well going forward, I think it's the right thing to do.
Thank you. So does anyone wants to speak against the motion? No, well, I'll put the motion. All those in favour of the officer's recommendation, please say aye. Aye. Against? Carried. Item 3, Representative Review, 2018 Local Government Commission Determination. Moved by Councillor Bogue. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Wright, would you like to speak for that motion?
Yes, well, of course, I'm in favour of this, and it seems to be a no-brainer, considering that we had only 2 objections, and the recommendation is that there isn't the grounds for a judicial review or an appeal. However, it was interesting to read the determination, which is available to the public. It acknowledges particularly the comprehensive work that had been done by our governance team, and the Local Government Commission gave weight to that, especially looking at the number of candidates, diversity and the geographical spread of the various options. They did note, however, that the original decision, which was to proposal was to stick with the status quo, didn't take this into account and, quote, in the interests of a truly robust process, the council may have been better advised to have proposed a change in its initial proposal. However, they endorsed our final decision, which was for the full ward system, because of the depth of the analysis and the submissions and the fact that we also almost unanimously supported it. It was interesting that they recommend further work be done as part of our next review to determine if the current 4 wards are best representative of the total communities of interest in our city. And they also suggest that we look further next time into considering a community board for Marae Nui, which has the highest level of deprivation and the least engagement in the election processes. So I think it's a great result, and as I say, no basis really for a judicial review or a challenge of this determination. So let's approve this recommendation and move on.
Is there any further comments? Councillor McGrath.
Just through the chair, at the time I didn't support the change to full wards. It's very interesting that it only received 37 submissions and 26 people wanted the full ward system. So it's not very representative of Napier, but today we're just receiving the resolution from the Local Government Commission, so I'm not going to vote against it. But I would just like to put out there to people that currently, or at the last election, you could vote for more than half of the councillors. You had 6 at large, plus your ward councillors. Now, if you live in a place like Onikawa or Tamatea, you will get to vote for 2 of 12. If you're in Taradale, it will be 4 of 12. So people will see democracy in different ways, and I'm not sure it will encourage more people to vote when you actually have less people to vote for and choose from. You feel that you don't have a majority. But people will feel differently about that. It will be interesting to see at the next election what comes of that. But like I say, a whole 26 people pretty much swayed a lot of this. So it is important that when you have the opportunity to have your say, make sure you do have it.
I gave you a little bit of rope there because it was not relevant to the paper, but it was good that you got it off your chest. The Mayor.
Well, I don't have to say all that because Councillor McGrath said it and got away with it. So I would just, obviously I'm going to vote for this because we're just being asked to receive it. So it's not up for grabs. But I'd just like to go on record as saying that I think the system that we're introducing is totally inappropriate for Napier. And I believe that we're only talking about a city that's the size of a big farm, and we're going to have this ridiculous system. And as Councillor McGrath said, don't look at me like that. As Councillor McGrath said, we now, I think democracy has been actually done a disservice because we're now getting less of a say. So I'll vote for it because we're just receiving it. But I want to go on record as saying I think it's totally inappropriate for Napier.
Do I have right of reply?
We certainly will. I mean, I'm not showing my hand to say that I voted against it originally, am I, by letting this free for all? But it's good that all the people here hear what everyone's views are. So your right of reply?
Just want to pick up on a couple of points that have been made, and as we know, it's not really for proper debate at the moment. But I think one of the advantages of having a smaller number of people to vote for is, like, usually when you get your voting book, you've got, you know, the mayor and all the people running for mayor. Well, there was only one last time, but maybe there'll be a few this time. You have maybe 20 people out of whom you pick 6 for your at-large, many of whom you don't know and you possibly won't get to know. And then you have your ward councillors, your 1 or your 2 in the current system. With the new system, you will have, I think it will be much more simplified because you won't have that big bunch of at-large candidates who represent sort of the city as a whole, but not necessarily your particular area. You will have just 2 or 4 people to choose from your area or of your area or to support your area, and you've got a chance of getting to know them and getting, hopefully, that there'll be a degree of accountability there, because there'll be people that you see around, whereas when you've got the larger number, you're less likely to engage with them.
Councillor Vogt, can we get on to the subject now? We've all had a little shot.
Everybody else had a go.
Yeah, well, you got the same time. In actual fact, the 2 that spoke said they're going to vote for the paper.
Okay, well, let's do it.
So we'll put the motion. All those in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
Against? Carried. Right. Item 4 is the ordering of candidates' names on voting documents. Moved by Councillor McGrath, seconded by Councillor Taylor. Do we have any comments? Well, keep to the subject, yeah.
New rules all the time. I understand there's been studies in the past that show that when it comes to voting papers, if your initials are somewhere in the middle, such as M or P, you're on a hiding to nothing. People tend to tick A, B and C and go, oops, I better do a few down the bottom. So this paper is going to be what we did last time, and that's randomly spread out, or randomly order the names. So I'm all for it.
So did you say M and P, so you were considered, and my name was, so you get longer to talk?
Yeah, pretty much.
Is there any other comments? Councillor.
Just a question through the chair. I'm personally in favour of this, but I note that we were the only council in 2016 to use this, unless I've misread the paper, and the government did not agree to all ballot papers being randomised, I think, unless I've misread this. So just wanted to know a little bit more information about that, please.
Our residential expert.
Thank you, Councillor. Through you, Mr Chair. So the 2016 elections, you're correct. Napier City was the only council in the region at that time that used randomised. We've had strong indications from every council in the region now that they're moving in our direction. So it's generally accepted that randomised is a preferred practice. Central government did do some research into it and then essentially decided that they didn't want to enforce any system on anyone, so that's the reason why they haven't specifically come out and said you must use randomised. But as Councillor McGrath has pointed out, there is research in place that suggests that alphabetised systems where it runs from A to Z does, if slightly, benefit people with surnames at the start of the alphabet. Sorry, Councillor Brosnan. Yeah, thank you.
Okay, is there any other questions? So I'll put the motion. All those in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
Against? Carried. Right, item 5 is the Napier Roll of Honour. Do I have a mover for that, please?
I'll move.
Moved by the Mayor, seconded by Councillor Taylor. Do you want to...
Well, I'd just like to acknowledge the people that have put all the effort in, led by our own Charles Rapatini, who put the effort in to create what we hope is a very accurate roll to go on the new Roll of Honour. There's been a hell of a lot of work going to it, and I just think they should be acknowledged for the work they've done, and I think it's going to be great when we finally get the project completed, that the roll of honour will be as accurate as is possible.
Councillor Taylor.
Yeah, I'd just like to confirm what the Mayor has said and congratulate Charles in particular. I know there were a few road bumps on the way as part of the working party. We did come up with some ideas that we had to change moving forward, and I think they've done a fantastic effort, and they should be congratulated, and as the Mayor said, look forward to them actually being presented to the public.
Thank you. Councillor Wise.
Just a question through the chair. I note that there have been 15 names identified to be removed from the roll of honour, and there's some good background information as to why that recommendation has been made. I was uncertain from reading through the paper whether there'd been any attempt to contact or identify family members of the names that are being removed, just to see if there was any concern about this happening.
Where that was possible, attempts were made.
Yes, yes.
Sorry, Mr. Chair, we didn't hear that reply.
Is that better? Yeah, where possible and where practicable, families have been contacted, and yeah, it's as accurate as we can get it.
We're just wondering if we were at risk in any way of.
Councillor Haig.
Through the chair, just to follow up on that, I feel a bit uneasy about the removal of the 15 names. I do understand that we want it to be correct, but I just wonder if it's the right thing to do. The ones there where family has specifically requested they come off, I have no issue with that. Where we haven't been able to contact family, I'm not sure about that, and I wonder how important it is in the big scheme of things. There must have been a reason that they originally went onto the roll. Someone's put them on there. They were originally deemed to be appropriate for the list. It's still not sitting really well with me about having them removed, but I'm happy to be convinced by other arguments. But at this stage, it doesn't feel right.
Any other comments? So the motion is before us. There's no amendment or anything? Okay. So all those in favour of the motion, please say aye.
Aye.
Against? Carried. Item 6, the War Memorial Design Option Consultation. Yes?
If you're happy to take a motion, Mr. Chair.
Yes?
Yeah.
Presentation first.
Just leave the questions. Are you going to speak to it, are you? No?
No,
Right.
we were just going to summarise the paper, but that's okay, we can just speak to the
Yes.
questions.
Up to you, but I'm happy for the summary.
Natasha, you can summarise the paper. I did talk to Virgil and he said he's just here for questions.
Yes, correct, yeah. Just to confirm that Virgil, his company did the survey and he is here to answer any questions about that survey. So I just wanted to summarise that we took the 3 design concepts out for public consultation to ask whether people liked them or not, suggest changes or to provide their own design. We held 11 face-to-face engagement activities, 3 of which were hosted by the RSA, and around 200 people engaged in those activities. We made the forms available at 5 locations and promoted the consultation through various channels. We also directly approached stakeholders by letter and through social media. We sought feedback and via the survey, which around 1,300 people completed, and just the results of that survey was that 65.5% liked the garden option, 32.6% liked the indoor option, and 28% the forecourt option. We did receive around 7 design modifications, and they were all located around the same sites as the 3 designs. Some suggested new features, but none substantially departed from the concepts. And that's the summary. Thank you.
Thanks very much. So, are there any questions from? Yes.
Thank you, Natasha. Did you feel, Virgil, that the indoor options were diluted by having two? Having one in the forecourt and one inside, having two options that were indoor, do you feel the outcome would have been different if there'd been one sheltered option?
Very, very hard to answer that question without actually doing research in that area. But typically everyone was given an opportunity to say whether they liked or disliked it, not what their preference was. So regardless of whether there were two or three, when you get 70% of people, 65% of people saying, I like this option, and a third or less saying they like the other options, I think that pretty much sort of speaks to itself in terms of the outcome of the research. But whether or not one option versus two would have diluted it, I couldn't say.
It didn't come through, you believe, in the responses?
There was nothing that came through that indicated that.
Thanks, Virgil. Thank you.
Councillor Wise.
I note in your summary that there was a comment where you'd removed some of the submissions for a variety of reasons, one of them being that it was allegedly from the same person.
Yep.
What process did you use to identify that?
So it's a good question. There were 10 of those out of the 500 and something that we collected. So we always oversample. The remaining surveys were basically just incomplete. They, had abandoned the survey halfway through, hadn't answered the questions. We couldn't verify who they were, etc. So in terms of the ones that allegedly came from the same person, there were 10. So there was no major skewing or ripping out of, etc. So quite often what we do is we check to see if we can validate whether or not that person gave us contact details, etc., whether it comes from the same IP address, just a variety of different ways. But typically, the 10 that were removed were those that we thought, this looks like it come from the same person from an IP perspective, but the other 100 were just partially complete or unable to use them.
Okay, so just following on from that, if there's been multiple family members making a submission from one IP address, then you're potentially removing some valid.
Removing those 10 will not change the overall result. So it could be argued that. It could be argued that, but I don't think it's going to change the result, those 10 respondents.
And then, sorry, just one further question. There was also a comment that any submissions from outside of the Napier area have been removed. Was that part of the brief you were given, that you weren't to include any of those?
So it was a survey of Napier residents. So we surveyed residents of Napier. If they had lived there their whole lives but weren't actually current residents or ratepayers and indicated that they didn't live in the area, then they were removed. But no one turned around and said, I don't live here, but I lived here my whole life and I really do want my opinion to be counted and I need it to be expressed. No one said that. They just said, I'm in Hamilton or I live in Auckland.
Can I just say something too? So that was out of the 400 sample size for the survey, so it didn't include what we got through the other, the Napier City Council website. Yeah.
Good question.
Any other questions?
Can I just clarify that you sampled 400 people that actually did 572 or something, is that correct?
We collected, we always oversample just to make sure that we have enough data and that it's enough robust data and we have the ability to be able to clean data and present valid results.
Yep. So the 172 that didn't make it through, were they just randomly removed?
No, they were mostly incomplete. Surveys that have been abandoned partway, hang-ups or whatever, or just didn't fill in the survey form in its entirety. We couldn't use the data.
Councillor Tapani.
So, Troy, just a follow-on question from Councillor Wise's with the 10 similar IP address comments that came in. Did you capture one of those comments in the 400?
Yep. And again, it wasn't the same 10 IP addresses.
Okay.
So it wasn't like 10 responses from the single IP address. It was a double up here or maybe 2 there, etc.
Okay. Cool. Thank you.
Other questions? Okay, we'll move on. Councillor Brosnan, you've informed me that you have a
motion.
Recommendation to put forward.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I think your recommendation in the paper is perfect, Mr. Chair, and congratulations on its formation. I know that required some work. So I would like to move your wording with following additions D and E making up my substantive motion. I have copies if councillors would like, and I've also emailed to staff if they would like to put it on the big screen.
So if we can just hold fire
Take a minute.
Yeah, and we'll get it put on the screen so everybody can read it. Except me.
Yes, yes, absolutely. Did the extras get round? I haven't got any out. Not that one. There were 2 attachments to that email.
Yeah, that's come through. No, just drops right down the list.
Another stitch out of the gums.
Are they ready to come?
Yeah, they've gone. That was the big one.
For you, Mr. Chair, if you're happy for me to read through the motion.
So you've moved it. Do we have a seconder, please? Councillor Wise?
Can I read through the motion?
Yes.
Mr. Chair, thank you. So my motion is that the Strategy and Infrastructure Committee, A, notes the community feedback, B, reconfirms its decision made on the 27th of September to locate the War Memorial at the Floral Clock site, and C, provides direction on design concept. Thank you for that wording, Mr. Chair. D, that council staff take the following design direction to create a final design concept for adoption by council. Point 1, that the reinstated memorial be constructed at forecourt level on the Floral Clock site, forming part of the War Memorial site. Point 2, that a curved wall open to the elements mimicking the ballroom shape and physically connected to the building display the roll of honour. Point 3, that the perpetual flame be built into the existing War Memorial building entranceway so that it is visible when entering the building from the memorial and externally at night. that water be incorporated into the design.
Excuse me, could that be moved up so people can read it, please? Sorry.
That water be incorporated into the design that is near to and complements the flame so that they can be viewed together. That a place to sit and reflect be included. That physical access and visual connection to the formal lawn be incorporated. That remembrance artwork be commissioned to connect the memorial space with the memorial building and lower lawn, uniting the memorial elements, and that this be given as a brief to the Arts Advisory Group to commission. That landscaping is included that complements and promotes restful contemplation, and that unites the memorial building with the memorial elements. That the design include flagpoles connecting the memorial and the memorial building. That World War I and World War II roles be displayed in a prominent way, flowing on to future conflicts such as the Vietnam and Boer War roles. That the original Roll of Honour be respectfully incorporated into the design, and that a small committee of appropriate representatives, for example the RSA and historians, are given this brief to provide Council a recommendation on how to incorporate. E. Note Council's intention to adopt a final design no later than August 2019 and begin construction as soon as practicable in the 2019 calendar year. With your leave, Mr. Chair, I'd like to speak to my motion.
Yes, you have 10 minutes
10.
or less.
It may be less.
Yeah, Kirsten.
The consultation we have just been through was an opportunity for us to ask the question of our community: what do you want in your reinstated memorial? What do you want it to look like? And then listen. The consultation was a huge success in that we received hundreds of great ideas and feedback. The motion you have before you, councillors, has come from an analysis of the 180-odd pages of submissions and having paid particular attention to the qualitative feedback we received. My view is this motion is an opportunity to unite, to embody our consultation question, and to action a real community-led design that has support and buy-in across the board. This motion is a collaborative effort from every submitter who engaged, every special interest group whose interests weigh heavily, and our staff's assessment. This design has been through these groups, which have included the designers Mr. Guy Natouche and Mr. Craig Morley, and also included Dr. Robin Gwynn, Mrs. Dorothy Pilkington, and Mr. Alan Rhodes, and at this stage has unanimous agreement from all parties as to the workability of this design criteria as direction to our staff. The submission reading pulled out a list of key elements and community importance and what the outcome wants were from our community. This motion was then assessed against these theme categories, and I would like to table that criteria and the assessment now. This is what I've also emailed to staff so that it form part of the minutes. And I will, if staff are happy to forward that round, that's the assessment criteria table. As the RSA said, access and accessibility is paramount. As Submitter Graham said, bring it to the forecourt level. As Submitter Natouche said, the roll of honour must be outside. As the return of the roll focus group said, it should not be separate to the War Memorial Building. As our historians said, it should be physically attached to or part of the existing building. As Submitter Blewett suggested, put the flame in the entranceway. As Submitter Moore suggested and said, the elements have always been part of the building and need to be returned. Submission after submission told us it needed to be in
or on the memorial building. I believe this motion's design direction is high level enough that it allows some design flair, but is also prescriptive enough to give clear direction to our staff. The feedback from staff I've had so far has been collaborative and positive. Let's let staff come back to us with something the community have asked for. Let's make a decision today that gives people faith in our consultation process. Let's get moving towards construction and righting this wrong together. Let us remember them first. Thank you.
Thank you. I just have one question, and it's as a result of Mr. Kingsford asked me a question. The E, maybe could he comment on that, the timeline? Would you be happy with that, for him to comment on it? And maybe make an amendment?
For you, Mr. Chair?
Yes.
Through you, Mr. Chair. Yes, just a concern over the proposed timelines in E, given the level of work required and the desire for a community-involved design process. I don't think those timeframes are practically achievable if we want the right answer.
So through you, Mr. Chair, my vision, I think, through this motion is that staff take away this direction and form up a final design to be adopted by council in 5 months. And during that time, the Arts Advisory Panel is put together to come up with the remembrance artwork mentioned in there. There's no further consultation proposed in this.
Thank you for that clarification. I still believe that might be tight, considering the concept, develop design, and detailed design process with gateways to proceed through in our project management framework approach.
Do you have a suggested alternative?
Well, if we could take this away, review the requirements that you've set out here and come back to you with a proposed timeframe.
I'm quite happy with you, with your leave, Mr. Mayor, possibly to leave off E until we come back and double debate this for the council meeting, which will give time for staff to reconfirm those dates.
Okay, are you happy with that, Councillor Weiss? Right.
Thank you.
Thank you. So is there a question? Yep, just going to...
Just a question for Councillor Brosnan. In your last bullet point of D, that the original roll of honour be respectfully incorporated. We've just passed a motion relative to a new expanded roll of honour. So with some agreement that would be the new roll of honour that is incorporated, not the original?
That's correct. So the new role that has just been adopted will be the one displayed. There's been a lot of comments in the submissions around how the existing or the original roles be incorporated, from burying them on site to including them in remembrance artwork, to melting down some of the originals, lots of options in that. I didn't feel I was equipped to make a final decision on that, so my suggestion in this resolution is that how those are incorporated on site in a different way other than display would be a recommendation back to us from those who have relevant expertise.
Thank you. Is there any other questions? Councillor Wright.
If we put the word physical in that, then it would make it clear that we're talking about the actual... Sorry, if we could put the word physical in there, then it would be, you know, the physical original roll of honour, because it clearly shows that it's actually those elements that were originally not.
Point your mic at you.
Yeah. Does that make sense?
Are you
quite happy for the third word to be that the physical original roll of honour be incorporated?
Thank you.
Okay. Any other questions? Councillor Haig.
Through the Chair, thank you, Councillor Brosnan, for that great work that you've done on this. Just a query, given that there was quite a percentage of submitters who are really keen on the garden option, do you feel in those bullet points there's enough of an emphasis around the positive support for the garden area?
Yes, I believe so. So when I went through the assessment criteria, and through you, Mr. Chair, I'm happy to go through a part of that. Came out very clear in the submissions that, and you'll remember from our consultation that submitters could tick more than one option. And it came through quite heavily in those comments that they enjoyed the garden option as it is visually and physically connected to the parade and the lawn, and included quiet places for contemplation, and also the landscaping. So you'll see those elements brought forward into this motion. And in that assessment criteria, you'll see the combination of the three designs are reflected in this motion, in that the original forecourt option, it is on the forecourt and part of the site. The indoor option, it is attached to and in the building, and the garden option, it is visually and physically connected to the parade and the lawn. And our staff workshopped that wording a little bit to leave it wide enough that we could promote that connectivity.
Thank you.
So I'll ask people to speak on it. I'm happy to suspend standing orders in relation to this matter so everybody can speak if they wish to. 20.6, yeah. So do I have anyone who wish to speak now?
Well, I'll dare say I'll be on a hiding to nothing here, but I'll have a go. I speak against this motion simply because I think it is far too prescriptive. It is far too detailed at this early stage. We haven't done the final design work, and we're trying to design this by committee. In terms of the War Memorial Roll of Honour, we've consulted very considerably with our people, and we've even had an independent survey done. Now, the results of the survey and the consultation are very clear. The people supported the garden or landscape option. We went out with three options. One was on the forecourt level, one was back in the building, and one was using the floral clock site and the advantage it has effectively on two levels. And twice as many people in Napier supported that floral clock site in the way it was portrayed in the consultation. Twice as many people supported that as supported the next option. So the results are very clear. We actually agreed as a council in September 2017 to build the new War Memorial or the new Roll of Honour on the floral clock site. And I think what we need to do today is simply confirm that decision and ask our staff to go back and work up some concepts that we can get people to look at, that we can have a look at ourselves. I think we're giving them such a prescriptive decision as we're making today actually denies the professional staff the right to come up with some good ideas. We're actually designing by committee, and I don't think that's appropriate. So I absolutely support a new Roll of Honour on the floral clock site. I support the fact that it incorporates in some way the attachment to this very building, but I think this motion we have before us is altogether too prescriptive, and it denies the opportunity for people to work with a clear head.
Councillor Wise?
I'm speaking in support of the substantive notice of motion before us today, as I believe this truly reflects the wishes of our community, and in particular, those members of our community for whom the War Memorial holds special significance. Referring back to the 2nd of October resolution, the direction from Council was for the three design options to go out for public consultation, requesting not only feedback but also input into any potential alternative designs or modifications. It was made very clear by councillors at the time that this was not to be a tick box exercise, that the community would not be asked to nominate a preferred option, but rather would be given an opportunity to have input into a community-led design. For this reason, I personally place very little weighting on the survey findings which rank the 3 design options, as this was never the desired outcome. The priority is to take the comments and feedback provided for all 3 options and use this as the basis for the design. It is also vital to give greater weighting to those submissions from key stakeholders who understand the historical and legal background, to ensure the elements are reinstated in keeping with the original conditions imposed by central government, and to honour the family members and community who funded a significant part of the cost. Reading through the submissions, there is a clear desire to pay homage to the original 1957 design, while also acknowledging the practicalities of returning the perpetual flame to the interior of the building as it was from the mid-1990s. Ensuring the roll of honour is at forecourt level and visually connected to the building is another strong theme, along with 24/7 access and an area for contemplation. The design direction before us today incorporates all of these factors, takes features from each of the 3 design concepts and pulls them together, recognising that the building and whole site are in fact key elements of the memorial, along with the roll of honour and perpetual flame. I know there was some apprehension about undertaking this exercise and concerns that it would result in design by committee. So I thank councillors and staff for remaining open-minded and providing our community with this opportunity. As governors, we need to have faith in the people we serve, engage in an open, transparent way, and empower them to become involved in local decision-making. I thank the key stakeholders for the significant contributions you have made over the last 2 years, and for also recognising that this needs to be a community-led process, which may at times require compromise. And lastly, I thank all the members of the public who made submissions to the survey and provided us with the feedback to pull together the design direction we have before us now. A design we can proudly say has truly been led by our community. Thank you.
Does anyone else want to speak? Councillor White?
Through the chair, while I recommend and commend the statements that have been made by Councillor Brosnan and Councillor Wise, and I don't disagree with any of them, there's only one that I have, and that's the, because we have a motion of the 27th of September that actually states that the war memorial will be at the Floral Clock, and we've gone out for consultation on the garden design. I have some concern today about us passing that the reinstated memorial be constructed at the forecourt level. I don't have any problems with the curved walls, the perpetual flame, the water incorporated, place to consider and reflect. Now, one has to remember that we have only just received this information, so I would like to see how this would be seen at the forecourt level, how this would be integrated. I'm not saying that I wouldn't approve it, but I have some problem in receiving information at a meeting that I cannot even envisage how it would look, where we have seen concepts for a garden design and it's gone out for consultation and 2/3 of the people have agreed with it. So while I'm not against the substantive motion, I'd just like to say that I'm perhaps slightly uncomfortable with that first D1 because I have no idea what it would look like.
Thank you. Councillor Jeffries.
Mr. Chair, I would support the motion just with a slight change to A. Not note the community feedback, but consider the community feedback. I mean, that's our role, not just to note it, to consider it and to do it due diligence. The other change I would make to D, council take the following design direction. I'd change the take to investigate, because I'd like some, some due diligence done, and I'd like some good quality information to make this decision on. But with those two changes, I'd support the motion, and I congratulate you, Councillor Brosnan. You've done it in depth. I've read all the submissions, and you picked out some very, very important points there. Congratulate you.
Councillor McGrath.
Yes, can I just have some clarification from Councillor Brosnan that what she is proposing is actually on the Floral Clock site, but just raised up? Can you confirm that for me?
That's correct. So B is reconfirming our decision to locate the War Memorial at the Floral Clock site. So it is on the Floral Clock site, raised up to forecourt level.
Thank you.
Councillor Tapani.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm speaking in favour of the substantive motion. While I recognise the comments that have been brought to the table around some of the complexities this might introduce to the work ahead of us, what I see before me is a rather concise document outlining some of the key aspects as were provided by our consultation from the public. And one of the key reasons why I voted for the third model option being included in the consultation was because it was put together with a lot of input from those that are heavily engaged in this topic. So I'm supporting the motion, the substantive motion on the table at the moment, because I think this is a concise way to provide clarity to those experts so that they can design something which is more acceptable to those who will be sharing and appreciating the space. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there any other?
As a point of order, Mr. Chairman, can I just say that if we change those two words, as Councillor Jeffrey suggested, I'd be able to support the motion too, that we consider the community feedback and that the council staff investigate the following design. And that doesn't commit them to it, but it says, we want you to look at it. So if those words were able to be changed, I would also support the motion.
Councillor Brosnan.
The only thing that concerns me in Mr. Mayor, your speech there is that they are not committed to it. It is my intention that the design criteria, and this has been reviewed by staff, is broad enough to allow some design flair. I'm proposing that this be, I'm happy for it to be investigated, but that the design direction create a final design concept to come back to council. That's what I'm looking for. The last of D is that a final design concept come back to council for adoption, taking this criteria. And I'm more than happy if your worship would prefer that come back through a workshop first, so that any investigative comments the staff have are taken into consideration then.
Is the wording being changed or not?
Just for clarity through you, Mr. Chair, can I just ask the mover, you're quite happy with the consider, because I think it's better than just notes. It's, and it's more appropriate, and investigate. Investigates. Staff investigates. So they're investigating all of these points. To design, yes. Yep.
So we've had a bit of a discussion. Do you want to modify your motion?
I'm quite happy if investigate replaces take, as long as the following design direction to create a final design concept for adoption by council.
Considers the community feedback. Council staff can investigate.
D, that take out take and replace with investigate.
I am concerned that we're going to lose, as you said, Councillor Brosnan earlier, a commitment to truly honour the criteria that's been identified through this consultation process if we simply have the word investigate in there. I just feel that weakens the resolution.
Councillor Wright?
I'm hearing everyone's concerns, but frankly, I think those concepts are so broad that it gives a lot of flexibility in design. You are only asking that a place to sit and reflect be included. How that is included is going to be up to the person designing it. We're asking that water be incorporated. How that is done, there can be a lot of flexibility and creativity around how that's placed and how that's done. So I don't believe it's that prescriptive. I think it's absolutely broad enough to go back, and someone with flair in design can then incorporate those elements that have been identified as important to our submitters, can then be included. How they are included, we won't know until we see the final design, but those elements must be included.
Okay, I take it that Councillor Brosnan is not amending her motion
No.
at all, or the first?
The first A is consider. Happy with that.
You amend that, and you're happy with that, Councillor Wise? And the rest of it?
Just for certainty, I'd like to leave take in D. Thank you.
And item E is removed. Is that correct?
Yeah.
What I'd like to do is leave E in because it will be double debated, and we can amend during the double debate process with staff's comment. Thank you.
Okay, so your motion is all the same except for A.
And principle was added earlier. That's correct. Physical. Sorry.
The physical original.
So do we have any other comments?
Well, seeing you suspending standing orders,
yes,
Mr. Chair, my problem is that it doesn't allow any flexibility to add or subtract things that don't pass due diligence. So it is very prescriptive, and investigate's not very prescriptive. It allows additional input. It allows us to look at all these submissions and go over them again. I think we've really got to do this properly.
So you'll get your right of reply. Is there any other comments? Councillor Haig.
I'm feeling like we've reached a good compromise here, and it seems to be one that most people can live with. This has been really divisive. It's been a long process. There's a lot of history to it. It would be nice to feel as though we're on to the final hurdle, as in the final design. I totally appreciate people's concerns about those points being prescriptive, but I think that will emerge once the staff begin the design process. I take on board Councillor Jeffrey's concerns around due diligence, whether things will work or not. My understanding would be that would certainly be part of a design process, and if things were unworkable, then we'd have to work around that. So I think as a gesture of good faith, and given that we have gone out to the community and got some really good themes and interesting ideas to work with, and we've tried to combine what everyone wants into one document, I think it's good work, and I think probably we should take a leap of faith and go for it.
Any other comments?
Well, seeing we're all having an opportunity, and I'm not going to repeat what others have said, but I completely concur with what Councillor Haig has said. Let's go for it.
Anyone else? So you're right of...
Right of reply?
Yes.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you, councillors. This has been, as Councillor Haig said, a long process, and I am really proud for us to sit here today and come up with a real community-led design. If it is said that the memorial shouldn't be at forecourt level on the site, then we hadn't listened to every submitter who talked about the site's importance and its heritage. If it is said we should just pick one of the design concepts we consulted on, then we would have missed the point of consulting for input, to the point council made when we didn't choose a preferred option and asked for community involvement in the design. If it is said we should just pick the garden design off the back of those quantitative tick boxes and survey, then we have not listened to every person with a special interest who proactively engaged in a quality way in this consultation, and every submitter who said it must be in or on and connected to the memorial building. In response to the Mayor's suggestion that it is too prescriptive at this early stage, this is not an early stage of this process, and this motion is not too prescriptive. It is the right balance of allowing design whilst firming up what the community have asked us to do. It is public involvement in this which has brought forward this motion, and we are public servants. Lost my spot, sorry. The advice I received from staff earlier is that a significant change this is not, and that it is our decision to reconsult or not. In my view, this motion brings it back to a formal council meeting for adoption and allows for exactly the kind of due diligence I agree with Councillor Jeffrey should be incorporated. As Submitter Hawthorne repeatedly told us, let's return the mana and the wow factor to our memorial. If you want a true, we have listened to you, community-led design direction with complete buy-in, then this is it, and I thank you for supporting it.
So I'll put the motion, Councillor Brosnan's motion. Can I have a show of hands too, please? All those in favour, please say aye.
Robinson Crusoe again.
All of those against?
We didn't get everybody this side, sorry.
So you want against or for?
So the item is carried. I just a note to say thank you very much to all the submitters, the staff, because I think the consultation process did actually work and bring an answer for us to move on. And to the staff and councillors, I feel that we've probably made a big chunk in fixing the situation today, so well done. Thank you. We'll move on to item 7, Greendale pool funding. Councillor Wise, second Councillor Taylor. Any comments? Oh, so we just... Something makes me think these people are not interested in the Greendale pool. Of course.
She's done the same due diligence with the pool. Analyse the individual exhibition and say the quality
You are tough on me.
Not suggesting that I am, but...
Right, thank you. We'll move on. Councillor Wallace, do you want to speak to the motion?
Yes, just would like to say that I'm very pleased that Council is recommending we allocate $50,000 to the Greendale pool. Although some may perceive the pool as being a club-based swimming pool, it is also utilised for the community in general, and I just think that it's entirely appropriate that we support them to get themselves back up and running.
Thank you. Anybody else? Councillor McGrath.
Well, I'm going to have to admit to being a little bit confused over the Greendale pool. Well, as a council, we've just committed to spend around about $50 million on a swimming pool, and now we're going back and funding a school pool for $50,000. Are we admitting that we haven't quite got it right for the city? What we're actually going to end up with is 2 swimming pools in the Taradale ward area, and nothing. which is great that we've got ward councillors on election year. It's fantastic.
4 of them.
4 of them. But we had a consultant's report a few years ago that actually suggested that the council abandon and don't move forward at all with Greendale. Are we now going against that report?
Maybe I just clarify that for you. The Education Department weren't involved then, and they've become involved now.
Point of order, Mr. Chair. Is Councillor McGrath speaking for or against the motion?
Do I have to choose yet, or just at the end like Uppy normally does?
You do, when requested, I believe, under standing orders.
Well, under standing orders, then I'll be speaking against it.
Thank you.
I would also just like to point out that from what I can work out, and I'm not quite sure, but the Taradale pool was built around about 1947. Was actually built by my grandfather, Harold Alderton, and a couple of others, Eddie Howard and Bill Pollock. And according to my uncle, who I spoke to a couple of hours ago, he actually had to man the concrete mixer and he's still a bit sour about it. But here we are supporting a 70-year-old pool, yet we're about to pull out a 20-year-old pool. It really confuses me, and I'm not sure where I sit with it. I'm hoping to change my mind by the time we get to the formal council, but at this stage, I'm not supporting it.
Thank you. You might have brought out more speakers than what we're going to get now. Councillor Taylor.
I'll be speaking for this on the basis that the closure of Greendale Pool came about a little bit unexpectedly, or a bit prematurely, maybe, than it was expected. And as you have rightfully said, the Ministry of Education, it's on their land and they weren't involved and weren't supporting it to be refurbished or upgraded. The community of Taradale, and it is a community pool, although it is run by a club, it is used by schools and members of the community can use it. So just to provide $50,000 to the committee, and that is conditional upon receipt of a signed tender agreement signalling the commencement of the refurbishment, I don't think is actually taking it too far. And the pool that Councillor McGrath talks about to be located at Predimson Drive is a community pool with lots of different facilities, whereas this is purely a tank and it is used for lane swimming, learn to swim. It's only providing a small amount of the aquatic strategy that this city requires. So I think with the need for the receipt of the signed tender agreement, we're actually not going too far down the track and merely putting $50,000 there and encouraging the committee to continue on the refurbishment that they have commenced. Thank you.
Well, I also support it very strongly, although having had years in that pool, I still failed to learn to swim. But to me, it is a community facility. We're actually supporting the club more than the pool, just as we've supported the sailing club. But the rub-off is for the community. Whilst we're supporting the club, it's the whole community that benefits from it. And whole of society benefits from kids being able to swim and not drowning. So my view is it's a very small investment, and I take Councillor Taylor's point. There is a safeguard that if the project doesn't go ahead, then we're not committed to waste that money. So I support it very strongly.
3, 4.
Had your turn, sorry.
No, I just had a question, that was it.
Yeah. Well, you can wait. Yeah. Councillor
Already 3, 4.
Thank you, through you, Mr. Chair. So I'm speaking in support of the motion, mostly because I understand that our aquatic solutions are not yet firmed, even at this table. So we're still yet to really determine what our aquatic solutions will look like going forward. What we do know is that we have a deficiency in meeting the needs of our community, and that the Greendale pool can play a role in meeting that and meeting those immediate needs. So I'm supporting this motion on those grounds.
I'm in support, Mr. Chair. We're all aware of the huge cost of building a new aquatic amenity, $42 million for Napier Drive. So if we can prolong the life of a community asset with a $50,000 contribution, go for it.
So that's 3 in favour, but you have a question?
I did have a question. Does anyone know if Sport New Zealand has made a recommendation regarding the Greendale pool?
Nobody's aware of it. Okay, we've got 3 in favour. Does anyone want to speak against it? So I'll put the motion. All those in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
Against? Carried. It still got carried. Item 8, road stopping.
I'll move.
Corner of Geddis and
I'll
Longfellow.
second.
Moved by Councillor
I'll
Jeffrey.
second.
I'll do that.
Seconded by
Councillor Bogue.
Councillor Bogue. You do know it's not stopping the road, eh? For everybody. Would you like to speak?
Yeah, well, just very briefly, like Harness and El Marie have just done a wonderful job down there. If you drive down, it's a sight to behold, and the access, it's going to vastly improve access. If anybody's tried to egress that and park with the old facility, they'll know what I'm talking about.
Thank you.
Just to elaborate on that, I think Councillor Jeffrey took some of the words out of my mouth, but if you have a look at the picture on page 60, you'll see two sections side by side, one with a building and one empty. Well, as Councillor Jeffrey said, and this is behind the Maraenua Shopping Centre, the empty section is now got an amazing medical centre on it that's in full operation, and what the old medical centre, which is next door, what's going to happen, that will be knocked over and further extension made of this lovely new building. It's a wonderful amenity for that community, and for those of you who can't remember, this was part of a treaty settlement, this land and this site and the building, when the Crown sold the land from the hospital site. The hospital site on the hill had been gifted by Māori to the Crown for medical purposes. So when it was sold by the Crown, this treaty settlement was made, and the Ahuriri Health District Trust was able to have this land and the medical centre plus a site on McDonald Street. So it's wonderful to see this up and running, and it'll be a wonderful amenity for that community and for others who care to use it.
Thank you. Do we have any other comments? All those in favour of the motion, please say aye.
Aye.
Against, carried. Item 9, Oamaranui Refuge Land Joint Committee Minutes. Moved by Councillor Tapani, seconded by Councillor Haig. Do we have any comments? All those in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
Against, carried. I'll now adjourn this meeting for Councillor Jeffrey's agenda.
Hey, thank you, everybody. Welcome to the Regulatory Committee.